This video is inspired by a very generous gift by Sean Casey, who is a new member in our Wednesday afternoon get-together and running. And what that was is a Lotus 78 with Gunnar Nilsson. Beautiful, beautiful car. And amazing helmet detail, which Fly is exceptional for, doing that way before anybody else did. An exceptional model, just beautiful in its proportion, size, and just spectacular also in its performance. Now, what I already had was the Ronnie Peterson one from a couple of years before that one came out. And again, exactly the same. It's got beautiful detail. It has Ronnie Peterson helmet, which actually has his name on the side. The only thing I added that I really needed was I did the yellow peak on the helmet. It was blue, but very iconic that he always had this sun visor over the helmet here, the visor, and it was always in yellow. And you can see he had a yellow outfit, which was very accurate as well. And the significance of this, I don't have this, is Mario Andretti, and he was kind of the team leader. But what this does represent is two of his teammates from two different years. And that started with Gunnar Nilsson, who was his teammate in '77. And then in '78, we had Ronnie Peterson. And the cool thing about that, they are both from Sweden, and I happen to have an incredible book here on the Viking drivers of both those drivers, because both being from Sweden. Now, the one thing about this story, which is all real, is they both came to a tragic end, both very, very different. But I got the book, and I've got the cars representing these exceptional drivers who were cut short in their prime and never really saw all of their potential, because Ronnie Peterson was always thought of being a future world champion. And Gunnar Nilsson, he just got into the sport, but so it was really hard to say how he was going to do in future. So Gunnar Nilsson, few details about him. He was born in 1948. He started his career full-blown in the Lotus 77 in 1976, and then had a full season in 1977 driving this 78, the Lotus 78, and managed to win a race. So he won the Belgian Grand Prix in Zolder, and it was in the rain, and he passed on the outside of Niki Lauda in his Ferrari, and that was a lot of thanks to the ground effects that this car had that a lot of the others, well, the rest of the field didn't have that back in '77. So it really showed the potential of this car and the idea of aerodynamics with that Venturi giving you added suction on the ground. Now, he was leaving at the end of that '77 season, and he had made a deal, had a contract with Arrows for '78, but before the season finished, he wasn't feeling well, and then found, after going to the doctor, that he had terminal cancer. So the next year, he sat out and see if he could be cured, and in the meantime, Ronnie Peterson came in and took over. Now, Ronnie Peterson, he was born in 1944, and drove for March for many years, and then Lotus back in '72, and did very well, teammate to Emerson Fittipaldi, who won the championship. And then he moved on to Tyrrell, and during the '77 season, while Gunnar Nilsson was in this beautiful car, he was driving the six-wheel Tyrrell and really struggled in '77. But he switched over in '78 to Lotus and got to drive and teammate with Mario Andretti again. And again, in this car, in '78, it's the Lotus 79 is most famous, and that Mario Andretti won his championship in. But they started the season with this car, the 78, and Ronnie Peterson managed to win one race with this. and I'm trying to see where that was. South Africa. So it's like the second or third race of the year. So showing the potential, and that car continued in its success. Now, the fate for them. The first, they have the real fate was Ronnie Peterson. He made it to the end of the season, second or third last race at Monza. He had the great new 79, and he was doing well in it. But during practice, he crashed it. So he had to go, as the reserve car was this 78. So he took that to the race itself. And unfortunately, at the beginning of that race, he crashed severely before the first corner. Punted off the track. It's all kind of, not clear as to what happened and who was involved. But he was severely injured, mostly in his legs. But overnight, when in the hospital, that very badly damaged legs create an embolism that ended up entering his bloodstream and eventually killed him before morning. So a sad end. He was 39 years old and had managed to win 10 races in total, came in second twice in 71 and in 78. Even after his passing, he came in second in the championship, even with a couple races yet to go. So super talented. When his fatal accident happened, Gunnar Nilsson, he was deep in his chemotherapy. He went to the funeral with a lot of other pallbearers during that happening. And that was in September, and come October, Gunnar passed away and ended the Swedish Viking drivers. So very unfortunate for Sweden to experience the passing of both of their future drivers, hopefully championships down the road, and all came to an end. So, beautiful book, highly recommend. It is translated from Swedish, and it does typical book at the time, lots of black and white photos, really showing both their careers in parallel. Both of them were hugely popular in Sweden, and kind of a competition, who was more popular. So, especially with Gunnar up and coming, and with Lotus and Ronnie Peterson struggling at Tyrrell at the time, really had them kind of enemies? Not really. They were friendly themselves. But anyways, other books on the subject, and that's the car, I would say, is a fabulous book here on the Lotus 78 and 79, the ground effects cars, and fantastic write up all the technicalities of the development of that car, all the drivers who drove those two cars, lots of technical things, blueprint drawings, and really all the development, and some color in there, beautiful pictures of the car, spectacular. So highly recommend, another great book. Looking at those two drivers and the cars, looking at the 77 season, we look at the Lotus, and this is where, if I can find Lotus, where are they? Oh, there we go. 77 in the 78, there's Mario Andretti, beautiful color shot, and we have Gunnar Nilsson up here, and there's that very distinctive helmet that we can see. Excellent. And then when we go to, oh, and here we go, here's Ronnie Peterson struggling in that six-wheel Tyrrell. He joined the team after Jody Scheckter left, doing quite well with the car, but then due to tire development and such, the car had difficulties, and he struggled when he entered the team. And then when we come to 78, we have, and let's find, there we go. We have the 79, and there's the first few races, there's Mario in the 78, and here's Ronnie Peterson. And see, there's that yellow on the peak of his helmet during that year before he switched over to the 79 here as well. So fantastic books, nice documentation of the seasons. Here are brand new books. I talked about the generous gift Sean Casey here of this Lotus 79. And then here's a generous gift from my brother. And these are cool new books on the 70s racing season. And here's the 77 season. And if we take a look, here is those Lotuses, the 78. And Gunnar Nilsson, the last race he ran, which I think was, let's see, that was the US Grand Prix. Oh no, this is Japan. Yeah, Imperial Tobacco. So red, very different color. And I think Fly did this car as well, this paint job. So I'll have to double check to see if that's true or not. But it's all the same mold for sure. And then here in this one, we have 78. And here we have all of those Lotuses here from the where they started the season with the 78 and then advanced to the 79. And then even a different color scheme, and I know Fly made these ones for sure, with the Hector Rebec version of that car that he raced as an independent using those cars. So very cool. And then of course we have Automobilier depicting the 78 season. And in this, got some loose pages in here, which is a problem with Automobilier. Fantastic color photos and such, but boy, the quality of the spine and the binding leaves a lot to be desired. I'm often trying to glue pages back in. I'm trying to see here somewhere, and maybe I won't be able to find it, especially with the pages falling out, there is a tribute to Ronnie Peterson in this one. Now, Autocourse, which is a much more thorough journal of the Formula One season, they go in much more depth from a journalistic point of view. The photos are good, but not quite the quality of the Automobilier. But there's that Lotus 78 with Mario. But if we look at the front of this one, they do have, here's a memorial page for Gunnar Nilsson and his passing. And then the previous page to that is the Ronnie Peterson one and outlining his career. So a sad time in Formula One, and back then, yeah, the fatality rate was high. And the cars really were not particularly safe, not like today with carbon fiber. And these were quite small cars compared to today as well. Now, looking at these two cars, the molds are identical. Even the driver mold is identical. It's all paint difference. And if we take a look at the Gunnar Nilsson, it being first, we see the John Player down on the side pod and Valvoline up by the cockpit. And then here, the John Player's up near the driver and Olympus down on the side pod. Now, the one thing I did notice on here, I did have a video talking about that gold leaf, which this car didn't have. It's very much that oatmeal sort of color. This one with Gunnar Nilsson, which was a newer, more recent release, even though that was still a few years ago, the color is much more opaque, quite nice compared to the Ronnie Peterson one. It was a bit faded. It just wasn't really opaque enough. And so the color's a little better, but still has that little green tinge I talked about before. But anyways, excellent models. We'll give a go and try them on the track. Track test time. Both identical cars, they should run the same. We may find slight variation. One, on this one that I had originally, these come with working steering, but I disconnected and actually I took apart the front geometry and re-glued it because the tires were sticking outwards, not in parallel with each other. So I corrected that, and I found that the steering was never really an advantage to any of these working steering cars. This one, I haven't done anything to it, but when I change the guide, it's not connected for whatever reason, and I have no problem with that. The wheels do turn, but they don't seem to be connected. It's probably an easy fix, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. The one thing about this car, and again, I'm going to go in more to the cosmetics, the paint, very matte finish. And I don't recall ever seeing photos of the any of the Lotus 78s with a matte finish, or any Lotus for that matter. This one that I had originally, it is very glossy and does have a shine to it, so I'm really not sure what's happened or the idea behind the matte finish on this particular car. We'll give it a go and see how it works. Great running car, nice and quiet, nice and smooth. Lots of grip, just like the real thing. Always love these cars with the huge rear tires and the small tires in front. Really gives it an interesting aesthetics that I really like, and Fly have replicated that incredibly well. We'll switch it over and we'll see if there's any difference between the two cars. This one is no different. If anything, this one's even smoother. Really stuck down, just, oh, crashed. Not so great. That little off, look at this, did in the front steering. Very tiny, thin piece here holding that together. So, end of the repair shop for this one. Talk about fragile, yes indeed. Didn't take much to knock that right off. Yeah, closer inspection, that little off not only did in the tie rod here with this wheel, it also broke the suspension here. So I've just put a dab of super glue on that to hold that together, and then I'll try gluing that on the tie rod back in. That was the steering piece. Also, what I think I'm going to do, since I'm not using the steering, you can see the steering is pivoted at this piece here. I think I'm going to glue and lock that in place to kind of secure that even better and avoid any component damage in future. Now, with our track test abruptly ended with our little accident, on to photos. These photos I took at Mosport. This is 2018. Very rare that they have vintage Formula One there, but this was a fabulous weekend, and of course it featured our feature car, our Lotus 78, and it is spectacular, as you can see. And I have the Gunnar Nilsson model, as we see in the picture here. I've got the slot car as I'm watching these, and man, it is so accurate. It's amazing. Now, it doesn't have quite the interior that one has, but the driver is fantastic. The aerodynamics over that suspension in the front is spectacular and so unique to this car. Up front, yeah, so low and flat and wide. I know at the time the competition couldn't figure out why he made a very heavy looking car with very broad side pods. Everybody was going very narrow, trying to find those extra seconds, but not knowing that those side pods carried that secret of ground effects. Now, in this vintage race, they don't have the skirts down, so it races comparatively with the other cars entered, and they do have a race, and it's very competitive. The driver on this, saw his name there, Japanese guy, and he owns and races several of these Lotus cars, not only the 78, but the 77 and the 72. And here's some track shots. Now, he wears his own helmet, unfortunately. A lot of vintage racers will pick a helmet that matches the car that they're driving. So why they don't have Gunnar Nilsson, since that's who he's honoring with the name on the side, not Peterson, that he should have had the right helmet, would have been very nice. Oh, there's that insert wheel, the gold. And in my Peterson one, it was correct, but on the Gunnar one, it's silver, so I have to go in and paint that a bit. We saw some detail at the very front of the little small radiator by the British flag. That on our slot car is a tempo print. Doesn't have the, it's so small, it's not printed, or it's not carved into the model. So here we have some action shots, which will now go into some live video from the same event that I took.